When the news broke that Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young and defiant leader of Burkina Faso, had refused the Nobel Peace Prize, it wasn't just a political footnote. It was an earthquake in the world of diplomacy and global recognition. The Nobel Peace Prize is more than an award. It is a symbol of honor that leaders across history have chased, fought for, and cherished. To turn it down is to reject not just a medal, but an entire narrative the world wants to attach to you. That is why, when Traoré's refusal became public, reactions ranged from disbelief to admiration, from criticism to outright applause. But to understand why he made this choice, you have to understand the man himself, the values he stands for, and the complex web of politics, principle, and perception that surrounded his decision. Ibrahim Traoré's rise to power was not the slow climb of a career politician. He did not inherit his position, nor did he secure it through decades of diplomatic maneuvering. He came from the military, a captain who found himself in the middle of a national crisis that demanded action. In 2022, Burkina Faso was facing deep instability. Armed groups were wreaking havoc in rural regions, displacing families and destroying livelihoods. The public's trust in the existing government had evaporated. People were desperate for a leader who would not just talk about change but embody it. In that environment, Traoré's straightforward, uncompromising style resonated. He spoke the language of a soldier, not a politician, blunt, unvarnished, and rooted in a sense of duty. That authenticity became his greatest strength, but it also meant that every choice he made had to align with the image he projected. Accepting a Nobel Prize, especially in the middle of ongoing conflict, would have clashed with that image in a way he simply could not allow. From the moment the possibility of the Nobel Prize was whispered in political circles, Traoré reportedly met the idea with skepticism. He is said to have asked a question that reveals much about his worldview. How can we claim peace while our people still suffer? This wasn't just a rhetorical flourish. For him, the Nobel Peace Prize would not be a celebration of what had been achieved, but a distraction from what still needed to be done. The idea of flying to Europe, standing on a stage in Oslo, and accepting a medal while villages in Burkina Faso remained under threat was, to him, almost insulting to the people he served. It would create an illusion for the international community, an illusion that the crisis was under control, that peace had been won. But Traoré knew that peace, in the true sense, was still a long way off. By turning down the award, he avoided becoming part of a narrative that was, in his view, dangerously premature. There was another dimension to his refusal, one deeply tied to his vision of African sovereignty. Traoré has consistently spoken against what he sees as the lingering shadows of colonialism in Africa. He has accused powerful Western nations of maintaining economic and political influence over African countries under the guise of aid and partnership. For him, independence is not just a legal status but a state of mind, a refusal to depend on or be validated by external powers. The Nobel Peace Prize, for all its prestige, comes from a European institution with a long history of awarding figures who align, directly or indirectly, with Western geopolitical interests. Accepting it could be seen, especially by his supporters, as a compromise of his core principles. It would risk the perception that he was willing to be embraced by the same systems he often critiques. By rejecting the prize, Traoré reinforced the message that his leadership is for his people first, and that international applause means little compared to the needs and approval of his own nation. Of course, politics is rarely just about ideals, it is also about perception and strategy. Refusing the Nobel Prize made Traoré stand out instantly on the world stage. While most leaders spend years trying to be recognized internationally, he did the opposite. This act set him apart as a leader willing to defy not just opponents but also the global establishment. In the court of public opinion, especially across Africa, this refusal was interpreted as a bold assertion of independence, a refusal to be co-opted or softened by the lure of prestige. For many, it proved that Traoré was not for sale, that he would not alter his message to fit an international mold. Even among his critics, there was an acknowledgement that this was a rare and risky political move, one that could either elevate him as a figure of principle or isolate him on the global stage. Behind the public reasoning, there are also quieter, more speculative whispers. Some insiders claim that the Nobel Prize offer may have carried subtle political undertones, not direct conditions, but a certain expectation of cooperation. Perhaps there was a hope that recognition on this scale would encourage Traoré to moderate his rhetoric, to engage more with international institutions, or to make certain concessions in policy. Whether or not these claims are true, they fit the long-standing suspicion that such awards, while celebrated as purely merit-based, often serve as tools of soft diplomacy. If Traoré even suspected that accepting the Nobel could be seen as accepting an unspoken deal, it is easy to understand why he would reject it outright. This is, after all, a man who built his reputation on rejecting the influence of outsiders. Any gesture that could undermine that stance would be politically and personally unacceptable. What makes the story even more remarkable is the way it resonates historically. In modern times, very few people have refused the Nobel Prize. Jean-Paul Sartre famously declined the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1964, stating he did not want to be institutionalized or transformed into an official figure. Leduc though refused the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973 because the Vietnam War had not truly ended. In both cases, the refusal itself became part of the individual's legacy, adding an almost mythical quality to their public image. Traoré's choice now places him in that same rare category, a leader whose refusal may be remembered as much as, if not more than, his acceptance ever would have been. The decision also has long-term implications. By rejecting the prize, Traoré has ensured that his leadership will be defined on his own terms, not by international accolades. It was a gamble. Refusing a symbol of global recognition might alienate him from some potential allies or limit opportunities for diplomatic engagement. But it also strengthens his domestic standing, especially among those who value independence over global approval. It sends a clear signal to his people that their struggles cannot be neatly packaged into a gold medal and a ceremony, that their fight is ongoing and that their leader refuses to let anyone declare it over too soon. In the end, the real reason for Traoré's refusal is likely a combination of conviction, political calculation, and a deep understanding of image. He wants to be seen as a leader who stands apart, one who cannot be swayed by the glitter of awards, one who prioritizes the reality of his country over the perception of the world. Whether history will judge this as an act of wisdom or stubborn pride remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. In turning down the Nobel Peace Prize, Traoré has ensured that the conversation about his leadership will not fade anytime soon. His refusal is not the end of a story. It is the beginning of a larger one that will be told and retold as the world watches to see if his vision for Burkina Faso can live up to the principles he has so fiercely defended.